Welcome to Mr. Giant Reacts and Ting and Ting and Ting. I'm Mr. Giant, back with another reaction for you, back with another video. And people keep telling me, hey, Mr. Giant, you need to come visit Serbia and the Balkans in general. So I've watched the video where an African American moved to Serbia. Some Germans were studying there and lived there. I've watched those. And there was another American, I think he was from Chicago, who practically lives there. So just to see what the vibe is and all of that. So me want to learn from each cultural perspective what it's like living in Serbia or to visit Serbia. We're going to watch this one here, and it's a guy who left London.
This is Paul.
Originally, I think so. We're going to check this vibe out and see what will go on with this. Let's YouTube and simmer.
He's from the UK, but 2.5 years ago he moved to Serbia. He left his well-paid corporate job in London to open a small record shop in Belgrade. As we talked, he shared with me how it feels to be a tea-loving Englishman in coffee-drinking Serbia, why Serbia is more expensive country than Britain, and what makes Belgrade a better city for life than London. Enjoy. What was your first impressions of Serbia?
I think the thing that shocked me first of all was that nearly everyone spoke really good English, which I did not know at all. I thought we were going to...
See, that there is good to know. No, and I say that because, you know, hey, when I visit there, everybody will speak English because I'm struggling with it to learn the language. You understand what I'm saying? Thing. So that's going to come in handy. However, he's in Belgrade, which means it's a cosmopolitan type city. There's a lot of people coming and going there. So a lot of people will probably know English in the bigger cities. I like to explore the rural areas. So I'm going to need a translator then.
Really struggle. We constantly on Google Translate, waving my hands around. But people here are incredibly highly educated. English is very widespread. We hung out at a record shop called Hugo Vinyl on our first day, and I was having a whale of a time. I was buying loads of records. I was being plied with rakia pretty much all afternoon. We met some amazing people. We ended up going back to a guy who became a really good friend of mine. We ended up going back to his house after, having a late party, putting his jukebox on. I mean, it was probably I just thought this is the friendliest first day I've ever encountered anywhere, and I've travelled pretty much everywhere. I just thought it was absolutely amazing. I knew nothing about the country. We wanted some content for the podcast, so I was going to go and visit the record shops, probably go to the pub, have some food. I had no idea that we would instantly make connections and meet people on day one who are still friends today. It's crazy. That doesn't happen when you go away for the weekend.
Did you have any cultural shocks here?
I think the biggest one, which might sound a bit weird, is the price of groceries. People think, oh, Serbia, it's a cheap country. A lot of things are cheap. You go to the pub, it's cheap. You know, you can beers, cigarettes, things that are bad for you, very reasonably priced. And then you go to, for example, Lidl, and this is maybe more for UK viewers, it's more expensive than Waitrose, which is the UK's fanciest supermarket. Lidl, an own brand loaf of bread here in Lidl, Serbia, is the UK equivalent of £1.60, so €1.80, something like that. That same loaf in the UK is 50 cents.
Wow.
Yeah. And like a tin of baked beans is 4 times more expensive here. I don't think so. Many people may not even realise a lot of them. Food here in the supermarket is insanely expensive.
You know, here's why I think that is. Because quite possibly a lot of those things are imported, number one. Number two, who's going to shop in the supermarket but mainly expats? Because, you know, they used to shopping in supermarkets where they're from. They're not used to having, you know, especially if they come from like big cities like London or Berlin or big cities. They don't drive to go get a local food, which more than likely is going to be cheaper. You know, they go to the supermarket. So they're paying supermarket prices. You know what I'm saying? Which is way more expensive, and that's the same thing on the island. You know what I mean? You have market day where you could go to the market and you could get 5 mangoes for $1. Now you go to the supermarket to get that, and it's going to cost more. I don't even know if they sell fruit in the supermarket there. They didn't when I was there, unless it's imported fruit like apples and pears and stuff like that. But like mangoes and stuff, you just go to the market on market day, and you have vendors come in with the mangoes and the golden apples and the sugar apples and all the stuff you need right there. You know what I mean? So that's understandable that the supermarket is way more expensive.
It's cheaper to buy absinthe than it is to buy a bottle of soy sauce. That gives you a clue as to how expensive things are.
Actually, I thought that Serbia is one of the cheapest countries in Europe.
It is if, and this is key if you're going to move here, do not do your shopping at the supermarket.
Yeah.
Go to the green market. There's multiple markets around, but honestly,
healthier.
the difference there, however, is everything is considerably cheaper than it is in the UK. It's this weird... I can't really understand it, how the supermarket could be this price and yet the market is this price. So yeah, top tip, don't go to the supermarket to buy soy sauce.
And what about overall cost of living here?
Transport is insanely cheap. It's not really there, it's like almost an invisible cost because it's so cheap to get around.
Do you always pay for bus?
When I first arrived here, I put a joke on Twitter that I wanted to congratulate the transport system for the entire city of Belgrade for running everything on the £4 a month that I was spending, because nobody else I knew was buying a bus ticket.
The same thing. I and my wife always paying for bus, but...
Why are you paying for the bus, Paul? Dude, because I want it to run and be fixed and maintained. It's like, When we first arrived, to give you an example, where I live, I think there are 6 apartments. This was during part of the pandemic. They were, I think all bar one were empty. Maybe 2 had people in, but there was a lot of empty apartments. And we took that apartment. Our landlord has been absolutely amazing. And we've been in the same place now for over 2 years. But I think the prices of the other apartments our rent hasn't gone up, but I know that for everyone else who's come in since then, hugely impacted by the influx of Russians. It has pushed the rent up hugely. I know 3 different people who've been displaced. We're doubling your rent, take it or leave it. And of course, they've had to leave it because Serbian wages are notoriously low. For anyone coming here now,
You see, that's what happens when you have a whole lot of expats move into a country. Rent goes up. It goes up big time. They had the same problem in Mexico earlier this year, where people were complaining that when the expats move in, food prices go up. See, the grocery stores are expensive. Rent is going up. Because the landlords there are charging them more, which trickles down into the locals having to pay it because that's going rate. So that's what's happening in Serbia there to a certain degree, with all the Russians moving in and probably other Europeans, because look, there he is, from London. Rent prices are going to go up. The same thing is happening on the island, because I was reading an article on the island back home that rent is getting so high that the locals aren't going to be able to afford it. So when there's a lot of people moving in, expats moving in, the prices of everything goes up because they're bringing money from where they come from, which is more than where they're going, like in Serbia, or let's say Europeans moving to Mexico or to Grenada, or Americans moving there, they bring in their currency to the table. That brings the price up. So that there is inevitable. The more people that move in from bigger countries, more stable countries as far as economy is concerned, the prices of everything is going to go up. And it kind of reflects there in the food too, you know. Like the prices of local food stay the same. If you go to the local market, it stays the same. But then they have to import all this stuff that the expats want because that's what they used to. Grocery store prices go up.
If you thought it was cheap, it was. It ain't anymore, my friend.
And what about leisure time, socializing, like going to clubs, pubs?
The nightlife in Belgrade is probably the best kept secret in Europe. Because, and I hate doing it, because you know what you don't see here is huge amounts of drunk English people on stag parties. And we really don't want to see that, because I think if they actually knew, they would invade here. The nightlife is incredible. It's almost like the nighttime economy is set up that everyone can afford to go out. Nobody's excluded because drinks are not particularly expensive. There are so many bars and restaurants, clubs. I mean, it's just, there is always something going on in Belgrade. It is almost like it is the secret party capital of Europe, I think.
Electronic scene is booming here now.
Huge.
It's like second Berlin.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And I'm fortunate that most of the people who are playing music come into the shop. We have a joke in the shop that Frank Sinatra pays the rent. Because in the UK, they pretty much don't have a value. You go into a charity shop, thrift shop, you'll be tripping over them on the floor because there's so many of them. Whereas here, they're very popular. And people really want to buy Frank Sinatra. The same applies to Sade. Her album, the value here is probably four times higher than the UK. And very bizarrely, the Gypsy Kings, which I don't know anyone in the UK who's ever even bought a Gypsy Kings record, but here, very, very popular.
There's stereotype about British people that they're always drinking tea.
Yes.
With milk.
Yes.
Do you have tea problem here?
Well, oh God. Right, so we have tea bags transported over, and then I give them to my local cafe bar. And I remember having this conversation with the owner. I said, I'm going to give you English tea and then you can sell it back to me. And he's like, great. So when I have my morning tea, I go to my local cafe. They have a secret stash of English tea behind the bar and they make me a cup of tea with it. And then I pay them for it. It's a Cafe Super, by the way, in Zeleni Venac. If anyone wants an English cup of tea, go and see Sava.
Wow, what a story.
Yeah.
So yes, to answer your question, English people have to have their tea.
And here there is a big problem with it because you cannot find simple black tea in supermarket.
Because it quite often...
Oh, that's crazy because I'm a tea drinker. Coming from a former British colony, we have tea time and stuff and all of that down there too when I was growing up. I'm a tea drinker. I don't drink coffee as much. But we do drink coffee because we're close to coffee producing countries and we produce a little bit of it on the island too. So we do both, but we mainly did tea. Oh, tea, I love tea.
And it's Earl Grey, it has a perfume. I don't want that because you can't put milk in that. In English, we call it builder's tea. You just want plain, strong black tea with milk.
With milk.
That's builder's tea.
What things do you miss most from Britain?
Probably cheese. Because Serbian cheese is either very young, soft cheese, or this kind of rubbery, like Dutch kind of cheese. And then how English cheese is kind of crumbly and stuff. And that sounds really weird, but that's the one thing I really... So whenever we have visitors now, there's a long-running joke that they always bring us some cheese. We've adapted to eating Serbian food very quickly. If we went to the supermarket and tried to buy, which you can pretty much buy the same groceries as we would have done in England, you go bankrupt very quickly. Where traditionally in the UK, you get in your car, you go to a big supermarket, you put all of your groceries for a week in the back and you come home. Here, we don't do that. We go to the market pretty much every day, buy fresh produce.
Yeah.
Much healthier. I feel so much healthier here. Ready meals don't really exist. In the UK, you go into the ready meal aisle, you need binoculars to see the end of it. It's crazy. Here, they don't really exist. And that's a good thing because it stops you being lazy.
What is your favorite food in Serbia?
I pretty much eat anything. I've tried everything. People, oh, you've got to try this, you've got to try that. I'm like, great, I'll try it. The barbecue, the grilled meats here are everywhere, but they are really good. And there's not a huge amount of chains. So you'll go to the what you might look like the nastiest kind of late night kiosk, but they will take the meat and make the patty in front of you for your burger. There's nothing coming out of a freezer, and not having this whole city completely infiltrated by chain restaurants makes a huge difference to the quality of the food.
Okay, British food versus Serbian food. What is better?
I think Serbian food, because just because of the proliferation of shit processed food in the UK, even if you go to a restaurant, there's half a chance what you're getting in your plate has been delivered in a vacuum pack to the restaurant by a big catering company and is going in a microwave. Here, everything is pretty much done from scratch.
Belgrade versus
See, that's why I don't eat in restaurants here, you know what I mean? My ex always comes, let's go to the restaurant, let's go to the... No, because I see them back there opening up cans of stuff and warming it up and stuff like that. There's nothing done naturally in any restaurant anymore. Yeah, no, it might taste good because they dress it down and they do all kind of stuff, but no, you look in there and it's like, whoa, wait a minute, no. You know what I mean? So no. Like I haven't eaten fast food on a regular basis since the 90s when I was married. And the only reason why I ate it back then is because my ex grew up on that stuff, you know, and sometimes she just went there. But I haven't eaten fast food in at least almost 30 years. I just don't. You know, it's just no. Can't do it. I
London.
have stomach problems. when I
Most
do it.
striking differences for you.
London does have everything, but it has everything at a price and at a distance. So, for example, if you wanted to go record shopping in London, you're going from this part of the city, then spending 45 minutes to go to this part of the city, then you're spending another hour to go to this part of the city. That is a tiresome chore for me. Whereas here in Belgrade, you can walk around the city. There's not much that you can't get here that you can get in London. Pretty much everything is available here. You want to go and have dim sum, whatever it is you want to do. The difference is you can either walk there or get a bus for virtually nothing. So I would say in terms of, the quality of life, Belgrade is far and away better than London, far and away. London's far too chaotic.
And what about people?
The people here are incredibly friendly. They almost seem like protective towards their guests. They're really happy that you're here, especially when they find out that I live here, I'm on a business here. I don't think I've barely had any kind of pushback or negative comments about that. The people are very friendly, very warm. I've made so many friends here. I mean, I used to joke before I moved here, I am too old to make friends now. I've got, turns out that's not true. I probably made more friends here in 2 years than I did in the UK in the last 30. And that tells you a lot about the Serbian people.
Have you gotten used to weather in Belgrade?
The summers are pretty brutal. When it gets over 40 degrees, that's a bit of a struggle for me. But the humidity is actually not too bad. So, and in winter as well, it might sometimes, it's minus 12, but there's no frost on the windshield half the time because there's no moisture in the air. In the UK, there's a lot of moisture in the air. So even at minus 3 or 4, you feel really cold. Here, I keep getting told off, why haven't you got a big jacket on? I'm like, it's not that cold. So yeah, but the summer is long, and for a month or so it can be pretty brutal, but it's much nicer than the UK, I can tell you that for free.
Do you speak Serbian?
No.
See, here's it. You don't equate Eastern Europe with brutally hot summers, and I don't know why. But, I guess it's the image that we had. It's always cold and dark and drab and stuff like that from what you see filtering out of that region. So, but then again, being from the tropic, the heat might not bother me as much. Now, the cold, yes, even though I still want to experience it because I want to spend at least one holiday season over there. Just one.
Why?
And I keep getting, you see, I'm now at the stage where it's now becoming embarrassing because there are two problems. One, everyone really is desperate to speak English with a native because there aren't that many English people here. And two, being British, I'm terrified of making a mistake and being embarrassed and people will start sniggering. My friend recently made me install an app, so I'm learning so many words a day now, but I'm not ready to try them in public yet. Serbian language is very difficult, by the way. Normally, languages you can anchor this word from your own language to that. Here, that's not really possible.
About socializing,
hard.
you have a lot of friends here. Are they locals or are they expats like you?
No, we have very, very few English friends. One of the mistakes English people make, in particular when they go abroad, they gravitate towards other English people. They want to go to the English or the Irish pub and they want to eat eggs, beans and chips and then complain about everything. We are not those people. Our friends are all Serbian. We go to Serbian bars, we eat Serbian food. We've integrated as much as we possibly can.
Why would you go live in a country and not try to integrate into with the people and stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like me, shoot. You know, go up to Appalachia, you know, my ex-wife is from the mountains of Kentucky. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people go to places and they look out for people from where they're from. Just stay home. You know what I'm saying? Like if I go to Serbia, I'm not going to go around looking, oh, where are the other Caribbean people here? You know what I mean? No, you know what I mean? I'll go to Serbia. I want to talk to Serbian people. Like that's why I want to go to the urban areas or the real Serbia. Well, you know, not say real Serbia, but you know what I mean? Where it's like not as industrialized, where you know you get like people who are real versed into the culture itself, because big cities could erode culture to a certain degree. But you catch my drift, you know, where all the food is natural, grown in the backyard, you know what I mean? Everything is done like that. There's, you know, no large supermarkets and stuff. But what, you know what I'm saying? Like, people move to New York and they live in a neighborhood with a bunch of other West Indians, and I was like, what's the point? You know, you're not learning anything about those people. You're not getting to understand them. The preconceived notions of who they are is going to stick with you because you're not assimilating to a certain degree. You know what I'm saying?
Bar the language.
There's always a huge risk for expats to get into a bubble.
Yep, 100%. And we were acutely aware of that and were desperate to avoid it. And thankfully we have.
Maybe you have obtained some Serbian or not Serbian, some new habits here.
Yes, well, I no longer have a car. So now I find myself walking everywhere. I use the bus a lot. Now, there's a slightly weird stigma in England that people don't really like using the bus. It's considered, oh, well, you get the bus. Here, I get the bus all the time. I don't even think about it anymore. But outside of London, getting the bus is a bit of a weird thing to do.
Any other?
I go to the pub a lot more. So normally, you know, because work is a huge thing in the UK. Your job is considered your life. So going to the pub on a Wednesday night or on a, you know, going out to a club on a Wednesday, that's not a thing. Whereas here, it's perfectly normal and something I've partaken of. Smoking far too many cigarettes because they are very, very cheap. And probably drinking a little bit too much, but I think I'm offsetting that by eating better and doing more exercise.
What do you think about the local beer?
It's great. I'm not really a craft beer guy. I just like normal beer. And all of them, as far as I can tell, they're all great. Here it is. Prioritise Pleasure by Self-Esteem, which is an amazing pop record. She was nominated for the Mercury Prize. I think this is a pop classic. I've recommended this loads of times, but nobody's ever bought it.
Why so?
No, I have no idea. I think it's great, especially when people come in for... I had a young lady in once and she was like, I like Taylor Swift, I like Lana Del Rey, and she did a whole list of pop albums, all big artists. And she said, what can you recommend? So I said, okay. And I pulled out a few pop records from British artists and I played them. And she said, oh, this is great. Yeah, brilliant. But I don't know this. And everything I played, their response was, because she didn't know it, she wasn't going to buy it. That's not what you come to a record shop for. You come and that's the whole point of having a shop. You come and discover something new. Sometimes people come in the shop to see if I'm real. They've heard there's an English guy with a record shop. It happened the other day. I came in and went, "Are you the English guy?" I'm like, "Yeah." He went, "Oh." A guy came into the shop. He'd only just opened, and he was sweating profusely. I could smell alcohol on him, and I'm thinking, this does not look like somebody who wants to buy records. So he went straight over to one of the racks, pulled out 3 hardcore dance 12 inches. And I'm like, this is definitely not someone who wants to buy hardcore dance 12 inches. He did a pirouette and brought them to the counter and said, "I bought these yesterday, I'd like my money back." And I'm like, I literally just watched you pick them up, spin around and bring them to the counter. And he pretended he didn't speak English at this point. And I went, "Police!" And then he literally ran out the door.
Do you think Belgrade is a safe city?
100%. And I've had this conversation with many people. I can walk home at 3 o'clock in the morning on my own. Nobody will even look at you. I've never seen a fight. I've never seen anything. I've never even seen a crime. I know they exist and people often laugh at me and go, "Oh, come on, you must have." I've never seen anything. I mean, English people, there are plenty of TV shows where they follow the police around at night, where cities are like a bloody war zone, people falling over, being sick. That you just don't see here. People behave themselves. This is probably the safest city I've ever visited.
How has your personality been shaped during these 2 years of living in Serbia?
I think I'm a lot more open now because people here are very open and friendly. English people can be very reserved and stuck up, I think is the word. So there's not really a class system here. I'm not a spring chicken anymore. And you might, you go into a bar and there's young people in there. Nobody's turning to look at you to see why is this old guy in our pub?
See, this is what I'm talking about right there. Same thing on the island. You go into a pub, old man is in the club dancing, 80 years old, getting his groove on and thing, and nobody says anything. Nobody says, "Oh, what's that old man doing in here? He should be home sleeping. You should act your age." No. We just have blockoramas, and you see old people, older people just dancing and having their fun, drinking something, not getting drunk, but, enjoying themselves. Carnival time, everybody's out there partying, having fun. Nobody goes, "Oh, man, I must need to act the age, they this, they that, they the other." It's like in certain bigger countries, they figure once you reach a certain age, you should just go home and wait till, expire or something like that. It's crazy. See?
People aren't kind of sizing you up and listening to your accent to see how much money you've got, what class you're from, what city you're from. Maybe as a foreigner, I'm immune to a lot of that, but I don't get the impression that's a huge thing here. And it's made me much more comfortable, not having to bloody worry and be paranoid the whole time. Because English people are, let me assure you.
What do you feel when you travel back in UK now? How do you perceive living in UK now?
This is my home now. I will never, ever return. I've been back once in 2.5 years, and all I could think about the whole time I was there was coming back home. It was awful. The Brexit has caused huge divisions, the rise of the right wing there, the toxicity. It is a horrible, horrible place right now. And I'm really sorry to my UK friends, but that's how I feel. And I wear my heart on my sleeve when it comes to the UK. And I hope things turn around and it gets better. But for now, it's a disaster zone. I'm going to stay here and hopefully become a Serbian citizen. And I hope the people of Serbia are happy to have me.
What do you think Britain can learn from Serbia?
Look after each other. That kind of the UK is becoming like America, where it's everyone for themselves. Here, things are still maintained by the state. We can afford to pay our electricity bill because it hasn't been sold off to a private company. You can go to the leisure centre, it's affordable to all. You can post a letter. for nothing. You can get the bus. You don't have to think about the cost of these things because they are supported by the state. So everyone gets a fair shake. You don't see food banks walking around Belgrade. There's now more food banks in the UK than there are McDonald's. And that's a damning statistic.
So you're never going back?
No chance.
Okay, that was quite interesting, I have to say, you know what I mean? But I understand a lot of what he's saying because, I'm from a different country than where I live. The prices of rent going up because of the influx of people, because we have a medical school there. So there's a lot of people from different countries coming there to live and go to the medical school. Rent is high. In the area where I live, where I grew up, I know rent is pretty high there right now, you know what I mean? Because the medical school is right there, the airport is right there, it's a tourist area right there. So, but the thing about it is when you go into the outskirts of those areas, it's relatively affordable. You go more into the rainforest and stuff. It's more affordable until they start having those little expat villages popping up, and then it's probably going to become more expensive. The food stuff, most definitely. You go to the grocery store there, and a lot of it is imported, so it's going to cost more. Now, in the local market, you go to the local market and thing, and people go in their backyard and they bring their stuff to the local market to sell. It is going to be cheaper, you know what I mean? So I totally get what he's saying, and thing like that. And there's not a whole lot of fast food restaurants on the island. Most of it is by the medical school because that's where most of the foreigners, that's what they're there for, to go to the medical school. So you'll find like fast food restaurants on campus. But outside campus, not much. I think there's a Kentucky Fried Chicken. That's outside campus. There's, but totally get it. This was quite eye-opening, and some of the things he's saying I get more so than other people because I'm from like an underdeveloped island, so you know what I mean. It's sort of similar to how Serbia is to a certain degree. You know what I mean. Very welcoming to people. Nightlife is not that expensive. When I was there, it wasn't. You know what I mean. The perception of people and the age stuff. This same thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this and learned something. Comment down below to all my Serbian subscribers. Tell me what you hear him say, what you think about that. In the meantime, y'all take care of each other. Let's try to bring some peace in this world, okay?